Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie noob nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink was a gift from my mysterious benefactor, and got me this. It's from Levenger. It's their 12-color sample set of their inks. Comes in this interesting little envelope. Spoiler alert for which ones I've already tried. Today's ink would be this one, Cocoa, which is their only brown in the set. And all the tests were done in this Kaweco Liliput with a medium nib. And I gotta say, this is one of the coolest chromatographies I've seen in a long time. Now, this is how you're supposed to do it. Put a little ink, instantly drop it in the water, and you see this amazing maroon kind of thing, and then it goes up into sort of like this teal, right in this weird middle band, and then there's this almost army green, and then there's this bright orange at the corners, and then all around the whole thing there's this tiny little line of like violet. And lately I've been doing these intentionally incorrectly and letting the ink dry before dunking it in the water. I think this one might be even more interesting. More of that weird lavender halo that we saw in this one remains, so you get more of a purple, and then you still get that almost maroony color going up, and then you get that teal, but instead of the army green you have this much more distinct orange at the top. How awesome is that? Anyways, comparisons. Here's Levenger's Cocoa, Diatramentus Sepia Brown, Gerban's Café d'Azil, Gerban's Terre de Faux, and Noodler's Kiowa Pecan. Now, there is something about this color of brown that is kind of unique unto itself. I really couldn't find anything close to it. So, bear with me. First up is Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter, where it's, I really don't know what to call it. It's sort of like this, it looks like cocoa powder. Like the stuff you use in baking, not the stuff you use to make like cocoa drinks. 11 seconds to dry. Get nice shading. This is sort of a nice warm sort of chocolatey color, but it's not straight brown. There's some, I don't know, something about it, and I'm really enjoying it. No bleed, feathering, spread, no sheen. Really no echo at all, but this is dense paper and it was a medium nib. Here we get that really interesting thing going on in the water test, where it did dye the page a bit, but what's there is pretty clear and fairly dark. It's just red and not brown, and I think that's kind of awesome. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where it took 6 seconds to dry. Again, there's a good degree of shading. You see it in the writing too. There's no bleed, no feathering, no sheen. There's very minimal echo. And yeah, again, it dyed the page a bit, and it turned red, but it's still a pretty decent water test, so, Next is Tomoe River Paper, where it took 12 seconds to dry, which makes sense because this paper's kind of odd like that, and my camera can't figure out where to focus. Decent shading, no bleed, feather, spread, still no sheen. There is some echo because this is a fairly dark brown ink, and this is very thin paper, but I think you have to be just a bit picky about that. Yeah, I'd say the flow is a steady 5 out of 10 wetness so far, so that's really not bad. Again, Tomoe River loves to let ink just slide away when you add more water, but that's pretty clear, that's pretty dark, that's pretty readable. It's just not brown anymore, and it did dye the page a bit. Now, next is 20-pound copier paper. And this 20-pound copier paper is awful. But yeah, it took 3.5 seconds to dry. There's no shading left. There's too much bleed for me for a medium nib. I don't like seeing that much bleed in a medium nib. Yeah, there's spread and some feathering, and it's said maybe a fine or an extra fine would do better. Here, more of that brown remained, but it's still mostly red. The paper reacted quite badly. But yeah, that's fairly dark, fairly readable if you had to recover something. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where it dried almost instantly. You still get a tiny bit of shading, and there is some bleeding and feathering, but for a medium nib on this obscenely cheap paper, I'd say it's really not so bad compared to some other tests we've seen. Yeah, again, a tiny bit of the brown remains. Most of it's red. Did dye the page a bit, but yeah. And lastly is Moleskine notebook paper. Sadly, this is aged notebook paper. It's probably about 8 years old, so maybe in the oldie days they made better paper, but yeah, 10 seconds to dry. Now there is freakish feathering on this paper, which you'll see, but it's so localized that it makes me think maybe something happened to this paper. So, I mean, already we know something happened to this paper because Moleskine paper does not behave this well. I'm calm. Anyways, still fairly dark, still fairly readable, but still very red. So, yeah, so there you go. There's Levenger's Cocoa Brown. It's got some kind of weird stuff going on in here. It's fascinating. Yeah, so for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.